everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Book Goodies author series of podcasts. I'm your host, Deborah Carney, and I'm joined today by Carolyn Banguero. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay. Carolyn is an author of a really cute book that I would like you to explain. But first, Carolyn, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi. Like she said, my name is Carolyn Banguero. I'm a self-published author of the children's book, Paolo's Adventures. It's a book that helps children overcome the fear of doctors and hospitals. And I was first inspired to write the book when I was in the hospital recovering from heart failure. And I was terrified of being in the hospital and of doctors. Mm-hmm. So that's how my story began.
Well, and that's really cool that you took something really negative and turned it into something really positive. I've been in that situation. I didn't actually have heart failure, but I had, one of those mini heart attacks. And,
oh, no.
They come in and they tell you one thing and they tell you another, and then there's big gaps of time where they don't tell you anything at all. And, there's people hustling and bustling, and you really, even as an adult, you don't know how to deal with it. So... and then there's the nurse that comes in every 4 hours, whether they're telling you stuff or not, and just wants to poke you.
That's absolutely how it was for me. So I can't imagine how children could feel. So that's what inspired me to write the book. And I'd never been in the hospital before, and I didn't know how it would be. And it is quite a terrifying experience. And like you said, Deborah, they're poking you every few minutes. They're taking blood. You don't know, and you don't know. Mm-hmm. From 1 minute to the next, it was, am I going to have a heart transplant or not?
Right.
And I ended up not having the transplant and surviving, but I did have to take an early retirement at 31. Mm-hmm. I was a third-grade teacher, and I ever so missed my career. So I wanted to turn my life around and find a way I could do that. And I was inspired by a cat that was rescued from the organization where I volunteered, Meow Cat Rescue in Kirkland, Washington. They just, at the same time I was in the hospital, they found a cat that also had respiratory distress and a rapid heart rate from a concave rib cage. And he had to have surgery and spend 5 months in these casts recovering.
Oh,
and he had to be so brave and trust the doctors and trust the vets. And so I decided this cat would help teach children to not be afraid of doctors and hospitals. So I collaborated with a friend that I've known since the first grade. Her name is Betsy Scher, and she's now a wonderful artist. So she did the illustrations, and we created Paolo's Adventures.
I love it. And it's really great that because you had the background as a teacher, you know how to reach that age of kids where they're, they're very vulnerable and very scared. And, that's the age where they could fall down and break their leg, or they could do something that requires them to be in the hospital, or something as simple as tonsillitis, and I love that you used a cat as your main character. I'm a cat person, and for the people who don't like cats, they'll love seeing the cat go through all this horrendous stuff.
Absolutely.
So you can hit all the demographics, but it is really nice to use animals as a demonstration for kids, because they can, if you use a little boy or you use a little girl, then either the boys or girls will attach themselves to it. But if you use a generic animal, then everyone can associate with it and identify with it. Now, did you decide when you were thinking about publishing it, did you immediately know that you were going to self-publish, or did you try to go the traditional route? What was your decision process there?
Because I was still so ill and I didn't have a lot of energy, I decided to immediately self-publish and not even attempt the traditional publishing route.
Okay.
Traditional publishing takes a lot of energy and time and patience, and I was at home, and I just decided I want to do this, whether it's traditional or self-publishing, And the fastest route for an author that is not known yet, I can tell, is being self-published, because even though there is a financial investment, you will get published and you can get your name out there very quickly.
Right. And, you know, like you said, you want to find out if this is going to be successful so you can start on another project. And you have learned the lesson, along with, you know, a lot of others of us, that life's too short. I don't want to wait a year to see my book in print. I want it in print now.
That was part of my thinking, was because at the time when I came home from the hospital, my heart was only at a 10% efficiency, which is supposed to be about a 55, and it was still up in the air. Would I need a defibrillator? Would I need a transplant? And I absolutely, just like you said, Deborah, life's too short. What if I need a transplant? I don't make it. I want to know this book is out, whether I make it or not. So that was my need for the rapid release of the book.
Now, what did you use, like Amazon KDP and CreateSpace, or what was who did you use?
So it's self-published through Book Publishers Network in Bothell, here in Washington. And so it was a great company because Sharon Hara, the owner, has connections to PR people and distributors. So I've got a distributor, his name is Eric Coral, and he links me up to Amazon. So my book's on Amazon, and also to partners. If authors don't know, and they're getting out there, you really want to be on Partners West and Ingram, because that's the company that all the major libraries, Barnes & Noble, bookstores, they all order your books through those two main book distributors.
Okay. And that was Partners West and Ingram.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make sure we put that in the show notes. So, and the way to get hooked up with those is through someone who knows the people that can get you in.
So you get a distributor. You have a distributor, and so it's a long chain of people. But that is the way the industry works. It's never just you marching down to the library with a box of books and then buying it. It doesn't work that way. It's ordered through a company, which goes through your distributor. So it is passed along the way. And that was something I had to learn. I didn't know when I first started. This is all a new career for me as of just a year ago. And I'm learning along the way.
Well, and that's, you know, I mean, for a lot of people these days, you're an entrepreneur. You know, we have seen changes in almost every industry, and the advances in technology are helping. But there are still some things that you need to know that are not out there readily available for other people to know. And, you know, just like this little nugget about, okay, yeah, you can do the Amazon and print-on-demand thing, but you need to have a distribution channel. And if you aren't going to go out there and you don't know all these people, then it's better to have, you know, a small press like what you used so that they can help you along the way and get you where you want to be. Your book, you absolutely want it in libraries and in schools. So you need to find out the people who would hit those audiences for you and make those sales.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of technology, it is very wise, I think, to get on Facebook and or Twitter today. Have a page for your book. A lot of people aren't going to see it unless you have some kind of social media connected to it. I don't have a Twitter account because I don't really know how to use Twitter, and I'm not really into Twitter. I know some authors that do really well. I'm a lot more into Facebook. I like Facebook because people can post pictures of their animals on my page, and I'm also connected to Meow Cat Rescue on Facebook. So we trade pictures back and forth, and I put pictures of Paolo, the cat, because Paolo's a real cat, on the Facebook page, and all of the events I go to, I post pictures. And I now have almost 1,000 followers, so it can grow pretty fast once you spread the word out. And one way it did grow was if you have over 300 followers on Facebook, sometimes Facebook will send you free advertising. So I did get some free advertising, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, it's always good to watch out for the promotions for those things, because that's that is a really important way to be able to grow your following on your page. When Facebook gives you those promotional coupons or credits, don't go and try to send them to your own website or send them direct to Amazon, because you're not gonna capture those folks if you do that. If you keep them right within Facebook and you say, hey, like my Facebook page, then your followers will grow, which means you can then market to those folks, and from there try to get them to go to your website or to your book page. But if they aren't following you on Facebook, they're not going to find you among all the, millions of pages that are out there. So I have found that's where the free credit helped for me a lot. I have a book page there, and they gave me the credit, and I went from 200 followers to over 600 followers in that particular account. So that was really cool. Because then you're talking to people who want to hear you. They didn't click on an ad and join your page just to win something or get something, because there wasn't any incentive other than, here I am, if you like what you see, click like. So
absolutely, and they only give you a short amount of words, so you have to be concise.
Yeah.
So my opening line, or my little short advertising word, was, have you ever been afraid of the doctor? Well, Paolo the cat can help you. Mm-hmm. And that kind of a thing, if you open with a question, and that's my other big thing I've just recently learned, is when you open with a question, it hooks people right away. Mm-hmm. So that's my one piece of advice that I recently learned, is how to catch people's attention quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Ask them a question of something that everybody's afraid of, and then answer it and give it a solution, and then people will be, oh, okay, all right, yeah, I think I will pick up this book and give it a shot. Or my baby's going in for tonsillitis, and your baby's 12 years old, and you can buy a book to help explain how things are going to be, or some other type of either elective surgery or emergency surgery. I would also think that you would want to be in hospital gift shops, if there's a way to get distribution into those. Because, there's a lot of parents that when their child is in the hospital, I know I did, you go down into the gift shop to see if you can find something else to distract your child. You don't want to go out and go to the bookstore or whatever. You just want to stay within the confines of the hospital so you can easily get back to their room. And, you want to find something for them to do. And so I don't know if you can add that to your distribution guys list as places you want to be in, or, if you can try to make some contacts with the local, usually the gift shops are run by the ladies' auxiliaries. See if you can find some inroads to the ladies' auxiliaries for your local hospitals.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have visited Children's Hospital in Seattle, and I did a reading there, and it just broke my heart watching these children going through cancer and other diseases. I don't ask them what they have, but the parents, it's just the look of despair on the parents' face is. Yeah. So it was really a gift to be able to go and read the book to them. They have a really neat playroom, and so that is a good idea. And I should look into getting into the gift shops. But one thing I do have on my webpage is a way you can order a book, and I will send it to Children's Hospital signed. So there is a way to donate a book to Children's Hospital.
Okay,
through my website.
That's really awesome, and that's great. And doing readings in the various settings is a great idea if you have the energy for it. Now I know you specifically said that you didn't have very much energy, so you're going to focus your distribution efforts and your outreach to readers is going to focus more online than off, I would think.
Not anymore. I have since last September, since the book came out, which was a year after I got back from the hospital, my heart efficiency is now almost completely back to normal. So I really, by some miracle, have almost had a complete recovery. And I go to book signings, I go to the hospitals, I go to schools. I can do whatever I want now.
Okay.
So it was just when I was first starting to write the book, which is right in January 2011. It was very, I couldn't get out then.
Right. And then, did you have a professional editor go through your book, or was it basically you and the illustrator?
I did have a professional editor, yes. That's another service through Book Publishers Network, is the entire production of your book. There was a graphic designer, editor involved to create it, and then once it was created, she's got a printer that she goes through. So I mean, it's a full service company.
Okay, good. Well, I know that's one place that a lot of people who may go direct to one of the print-on-demand places will do is skip the editing process. And I'm finding more and more that that's something that shouldn't be skipped, no matter how good you think you are or how wonderful your family says the book is. You know, that they should have a fresh pair of eyes that doesn't know you look at your book, because you can project into, when you're reading, and your family and friends can too, they can project your personality in and they know what you meant to say. And another woman I interviewed said that the brain is a wonderful editor because it knows you wanted to say something a certain way, so when you read that passage again yourself, it sounds just right. Even though when someone else may read it and it doesn't sound quite so right.
That's absolutely. There was a huge mistake I caught. It was because Paolo was in a litter of kittens, and it was 4 cats, and I kept saying there were Paolo and 1 brother and then 2 sisters, and I kept saying Paolo and his brothers and sisters. Well, he only had 1 brother, and I kept missing that. And that's a huge mistake because he doesn't have brothers, he has 1 brother.
Right.
So my mom never caught it, and I never caught it. And my mom is a really great writer, so I think it's like you said, it's projecting. Well, she meant to say brother, not brothers.
Yeah.
So I can tell you there was one huge mistake made in the book that I had to go through back to every word and find every time I said brothers and change it to brother.
Yeah, because, if I'm reading it and all of a sudden you say he's got brothers instead of brother, I'm like, okay, where's the other cat? I mean, I'm the type of person that would pick up on that and say, but wait, there was only 1 and now there's more than 1. Where are they?
Because you're the fresh pair of eyes.
Like fresh pair of eyes.
I absolutely agree with you. Do not skip. If you're self-publishing, do not skimp on having an editor read it. You need a graphic designer. You want it done right the first time because it is a financial investment.
And plus, it's your entry into the world of being an author, and you don't want it to be less than perfect, and then have people, I don't want to buy anything from her because I read the first one and it was it wasn't quite perfect.
That's right.
So.
Because I've written my next book, A Tale of Two Kitties, and I'm trying to now have that traditionally published. So I do have links, and sometimes I will send off in my query package a copy of my book. Mm-hmm. So that does say what kind of an author I am to begin with.
Right.
As self-published. So yes, absolutely. You want to start out on the right foot because you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
There you go. And it's especially true in the very competitive world of book publishers. Now, we've been talking about the fact that, traditional publishing sets up some specific barriers, and they're like the gatekeepers of old, that, only the good books got past them. And now with the ability to self-publish or indie publish, the gatekeepers have now become your readers. So instead of saying the gatekeepers are gone, authors need to understand that now they have even a bigger taskmaster, which is the readers. Because if you put something out there and you start getting a lot of negative reviews on it, you're sunk. You might as well have been,
right.
And everybody gets good and bad reviews, but if all you get are like scathingly bad reviews, and then you look at the book and you're like, oh, maybe they were right a little bit, but even just the fact that all of that is out there, can really make you decide to work under a pen name and start a new line. So. All right, and with the social networking, you said you've used Facebook and Twitter. What have you used, like Goodreads or any of the other book-related social media?
Not yet. I haven't ventured into those waters yet. Facebook and my own website have been successful enough so far that I haven't felt the desire to venture out. But I definitely encourage people to use those websites that are book related. And I also can tell you Facebook has pages that are just also book social networking. Like there's one called Books to Go Now that I belong to. And it's a Seattle-based one. There's all kinds of them. And so that's another avenue to go down.
Yeah, I had started when I was doing free Kindle days on some of my short photography books. I had looked on Facebook for, free Kindle, and there's like 1 million pages that you can post to, and some of them only have 10 or 15 followers, and some of them have thousands of followers, and some of them are very cooperative, and others, when you post your free book, it's like gone within 10 minutes. So, you have to kind of go through and decide which ones you want to be on. And I did notice, I'm starting to notice now more author support groups. So that's really important too. And I have a couple Facebook groups myself that are for author support. So one of the things I'm seeing that, maybe traditionally published authors do this as well, but one of the things I'm seeing is a groundswell of indie and self-published people that are finding themselves groups to work within, so that they're doing group promotions and they're doing social media together as a way to drive traffic to everybody. They're using each of their individual clout, we might as well say, or their individual networks to rally together to push out each other's books.
Absolutely. I do love working with other authors, and I've seen authors that like working with others and that don't. And I don't understand when people want to just compete and not work with other authors. One way to get your word out there and to grow is by collaborating with other authors. I love doing that, and I love getting together with them in the analog world. Sometimes you like to physically, sit down and talk about writing. I know several authors getting started in the writing world, and I get so many great ideas that I never would have thought of by collaborating with them and cross-promoting. I'll put their book on mine. They put, and we do interviews across, and just sharing in that can really help yourself grow.
Yep, because you're leveraging a lot more than just your own fans, and you're finding new fans. And even with books in the same genre, your world is going to be different from somebody else's world. And it's not an either-or decision that people have to make when they go book shopping. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into a bookstore or gone to Amazon and with the intention of buying one book, and I came out with 10.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about it being an either-or decision. When kids are in the book section of a bookstore, and mommy says, you can just pick one book, and then they bring over 3, and okay, it's an impulse decision to buy, and it's, if you think your child's going to be interested in it, you're going to buy it for them. It's just bottom line.
Absolutely, because it's an educational expense. It's not a new toy.
Yep.
And something they can have forever. I can say that I've tried the e-publishing for my picture book on iBooks, and it has not done anything. And my experience is that children's books really, in my opinion, don't do well, because with a picture book you need to hold it, children need to hold it in their hands, turn the page, and see the big, beautiful illustrations. And on the computer screen, it just doesn't come, it gets shrunk down, and it just doesn't look the same. I think people that have novels do really well on ebooks. So what I always say about, to go on about using the internet and websites is that works, novels work really, really well, and I see people do really well on ebooks.
Well, and part of the point there is that a novel you normally read once, and then you put it up on the bookshelf, and maybe 10 years later you'll pick it up and go, oh, this was a good book, I should read it again. Whereas children's books are hopefully going to be handled like every day. You know, when a child hooks onto a book, they may ask their parents to read it to them, 3 or 4 days in a row, and then they might sit down with it during the day without their parents around and take the book down and start going through it. So kids have a lot more interaction with a paper, a soft cover book than they do with an electronic book. Although there's a lot of kids playing with iPads now, but that still doesn't replace real books.
No, I don't think so for picture books. I think so for young author chapter books.
Right, and again, you're hitting a different demographic. Yeah.
So it's just my last little piece of internet computer advice for picture books versus novels and use of websites.
Well, and that's a really good point, and it goes back to the fact that you need to do readings in front of kids in a hospital or at a library or in a classroom. And, they don't want to see you reading off of your iPad. They want to see you reading an actual book that they can, look at and pass around and touch. And, it's that kind of world. It isn't the world of the book just goes in somebody's iPad or computer and gets looked at. But as soon as the kids break out of, get into middle school, then they're all into their reading on their devices. So it's good to know where the dividing line is.
Absolutely.
All right. If there was someone that was just starting out that was, an aspiring author, what advice would you give them?
My one piece of advice that I've recently learned is you've written your first book, whether you want to traditionally publish it or self-publish it, get it out there, either get it out there self-publishing or maybe put a query letter to 25. I put my query letter for my next book out to 60 to 70 agents and publishers, but then immediately start writing your next book. And then try and get that out there, and then your next, and then try and get that one out there. Even if they're not published yet, keep writing your next and your next, because what I've learned is I'm writing volume after volume. If volume 3 is picked up, what they're going to do is they'll go back and publish your other books. They'll say, oh, she has these other books that haven't been published yet, and this one book that we found is so great. So don't just write one book and have your head buried into that one book for the next 10 years trying to get it out there. Keep going, keep moving ahead, and eventually something will happen.
I think that's perfect. The motivation is there. Some people only want to do one book, but not from most of the writers I've talked to. Yeah, they're working on books 2, 3, and even 4. And once the creative juices are flowing, don't stop them. And again, not to be corny, but you and I both know all about the life is short. And if you don't tell the story, it may not get told. So you want to at least get those ideas out there. So that even if you aren't the one that finishes them, the illustrator knows what she needs to do and she can help get things finished and get the ideas and the concepts that you're trying to include in your books out there.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lovely interview. Thank you so much for your for taking time out of your day. And as a cat person, I love that this is a cat book that is showing kids something important. And I guess the one last thing I want to ask you about is how are you marketing your book? Because yes, you have a distributor, but what are the things you're doing? Is it mostly Facebook, or is it? I guess you kind of answered it already. You're doing a lot of readings. You're visiting. What do you think is the best way to market your book? What are the things you're doing?
I do believe you need some help with PR. What I did is I did the least expensive route for self-publishing in the PR division. I met with a team. It's called Etc. What are they called? Etc. Publications. There's two ladies I met with, and what they did was they gave me a disc that had tons and tons of contacts. The contacts were radio, television, newspapers, bookstores, libraries, all their emails and phone numbers and names, contact names. And then they also created what's called a press release for me. And so I took the press release and I just keep going around and around and around to all these places and sending it off and seeing what comes back. And so far it's worked really well. I've had a lot of book signings at bookstores, newspaper articles, radio. I've been on Chat with Women 1150 radio, and then I've been on. Let's see here. I've been on Como News. Just last week, I was on Como for 4 o'clock news. I've been on King 5's New Day Northwest morning show and Q13 5 o'clock news.
Well, so, that's awesome because it's all local, but then it'll spread.
That's right. That's exactly how it worked.
Yep, and it's awesome because you had a different hook. You know, I mean, you didn't have the average. Not to put down anybody who writes novels or whatever. I'm just saying that you had a specific hook that was a little bit different from somebody else's children's book, and that's why you were able to get all of this publicity. And you were the one who went out and got you sent out the press releases. Someone else may have a book that is wonderful, but the news outlets never get to hear about it. So that's equally important to know that, like you said, don't bury your head in your book for 10 years just trying to get the one book out there, but don't neglect your opportunities either.
So you have to strike while the iron's hot. And as I was getting my Paolo's Adventures Volume 1 out there, I was writing Volume 2 and simultaneously writing query letters to agents and publishers. And now that was a month ago, and so now I'm writing Volume 3. As I'm simultaneously also still promoting Volume 1. So it's a big cycle, and it's a big circle that goes round and round and round and round, and you never just dump Volume 1 and never think about it again. You keep coming back to it, but as you keep coming back to it, you're moving forward.
That's great. That's great advice. And one of the biggest questions that gets asked in any traditional interview is, so are you writing another one? And you can absolutely answer that with yes, this is going to be a series. And that makes people happy knowing that they discovered a new author that has this wonderful series of books instead of, oh, it's a one-hit wonder. Which those are fine too. It depends on your goals as a writer. But, for you want to get the story out there to as many people as possible. And, the story's going to keep going. So I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your time this afternoon with me. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And then I have a Facebook page, Paolo's Adventures Facebook page, or website, paolosadventures.com, also on Amazon. if you go to type in Paolo's Adventures, it'll pop up there too.
Awesome. And for those of you that are listening through iTunes and you're not right on our website, please go to BookGoodies.com, BookGoodies.com, and you will be able to do a search for Carolyn or for Paolo, and he will show up in this podcast. Will show up in the search results. And you'll be able to leave us comments, let us know if you enjoyed the podcast, ask us what things you want to learn more about. Something that comes to the top of my mind now that I'm wrapping up is, was it difficult to use a cat to project human emotion? And maybe we can do a separate podcast about that down the line. And also, we want to invite you, while you're at BookGoodies.com, to go up and click on the Contact Us and let us know if you want to be a guest on our podcast, or just use the regular contact form to let us know what you would like to hear about. And we also want to thank Geekcast.fm for hosting us. And as always, we want to thank you, our listener, for listening. And I want you to get out there and get writing and have a great day.